All right. Welcome back again to yet another thrilling, tantalizing episode of Romancing Our Stones, your male survival guide to media and pop culture your girl will likely drag you to.
Yes.
We got a spicy episode today.
Super spicy. We're doing episode 8 of season 9 of Married at First Sight, available on Netflix. So you can watch it at your leisure. And
At your ledger.
leisure. Huh. You know, some people say leisure and some people say leisure.
I say leisure.
I say leisure too, but I say leisure because I hear other people say it.
Oh. I don't know. It must be the way the British say it or something.
Leisure.
We digress.
Yeah, seriously. But I am Matt. How are you?
I'm Alex.
And that's Alex. And we're doing Netflix's Married at First Sight, Season 9, Episode 8 and 9.
Yes.
This
is a very meaty
there's
couple of episodes.
He is previewing the meaty scale. This episode is brought to you by our partners at Wash Park Lending, specifically Justin at Wash Park Lending. Visit your mortgage professionals at Wash Park Lending to get your home loan done right. Justin at Wash Park Lending will take a consultative approach to your home mortgage and make sure that you feel comfortable and confident in every step of the process. With interest rates as low as 2.75% and hovering at all-time lows, it is the perfect time to refinance or buy a new home. Visit washparklending.com and reach out to Justin if you're in the market right now to refi and or buy a new home. And we just want you to, and their NMLS number is 1952608. And I really got to urge you, if you are looking at building equity into a home, or heck, if you're looking to buy a duplex and live in half of it and use the income from the other half to pay off your mortgage,
Super smart.
which is super smart, now's the perfect time to do it with how low interest rates are. So long as you're in, I can't give you tax advice or anything like that, but being 51%, you could have a house which is being completely paid for by a tenant. And then that's going to build equity over a long time. Justin's the guy that can help you figure out how to do that. So reach out to him. I really can't urge that enough.
Yep.
But what are we drinking?
We are back to drinking our own brew. It's a Kolsch.
It's our Kolsch again, our no-name Kolsch.
Of unknown
Speaking
origin,
of no-name,
unknown
there's
ABV.
an area in Colorado called No Name that just burst into flames over the last 2 weeks.
Oh.
Very sad. So if you want to timestamp this, Grizzly Fire 2020. Maybe that's why we named this Kolsch.
I saw an article that California has 324 distinct and different forest fires right now. Is that crazy?
That's wild. Crazy heat wave. I mean,
Yeah.
we've had 65 days of 90-degree weather in Colorado.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Again, we digress. So
Yeah.
What else do you want to talk about?
I don't know. Just how delicious and cold this beer is.
This is so
in
nice.
contrast.
Cheers, yeah.
Cheers. So let's start with the episode 8 opens up with, all right, the couples have been married for over 2 weeks now. So we're assuming, 16, 17 days probably?
They're halfway through the experiment, so they're 4 weeks in.
Is it 4 weeks? I just remember it saying there was over 2 weeks. So maybe it is 4 weeks.
I thought it was so it's moving. They just
Oh, wait, actually, no, sorry. It could be 4 weeks because they've only been married for over 2 weeks now.
correct.
So, yeah.
So and I think that these next couple episodes take over a longer period of time. I don't think it's
They let them live a little bit.
yeah, you kind of have to allow that to happen. Keith. It starts with Amber and Matt in their bathroom situation, because who wouldn't want to start an episode with Matt talking about how he needs a place to clean his balls after playing pickup basketball. I meant basketballs, not his ball sack, by the way.
I was thinking the latter, but okay, yeah.
Yeah. And so I know I come off cross that way. This little predicament took up a lot of episode 8. Was this bathroom? People discussing
And
the
a lot
bathroom.
of empty, oxygen spent. Yeah.
And so it's really kind of hard not to start with that. But on a more somber note, Keith's grandmother is sick, and he takes Iris with him to go see her.
And, she loves that. And she definitely feels that, that's a big step, and that's a big trust thing, and he's, really trying to progress this relationship. Like you're part of the family now. Like,
And Keith's family was very standoffish to the idea of him getting married at first sight. And I hate when you have to use the damn title to describe a situation. To really see if love is blind. And
yeah.
he's a bachelor dating 26 women. But I think she loves the fact that Keith's family was opening.
Mm-hmm. She has like not a breakdown, but she gets emotional about it. She's recording her little session because again, like I totally understand. Like they're like, we don't want the cameras in for this right now. Like, so she's outside doing a little filming,
and she's sobbing. And the producers used that for this season on Married at First Sight. They're like showing Iris blubbering, and then it shows them sitting on the couch deciding if they're going to stay married or not. And it's about Keith's dying grandmother.
Yeah.
I'm like,
well, it's about her appreciating the weight and the gravity that holds, that he did want her to be a part of.
And I like how she went outside to give them space as a family. She didn't just sit there awkwardly.
She's still a new addition, right?
Yeah.
And she's honoring that, which I think, which is like spot on. Like, Iris is mature in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then we get all the husbands and wives meet up for the first time.
Yeah, but before that, I really want to talk about this last episode, but you stopped me. Where do they stop to eat?
They stop at Sonic only because, luckily, they have the Sonic app on their phone.
They do?
Can order. Yes.
Oh, my. So they pre-ordered and it was ready for them when they pulled up?
This is Matt and Amber, by the way.
Yes, Matt. Not me. Wait, so you can do that?
This episode is definitely sponsored and brought to you by Sonic. Yeah. Not our episode, this episode.
Not the hedgehog. This is the burger chain. Gosh, they spent so much time on that, too.
He spent way too much. That's how you can tell it was totally an ad.
In Sonic, you push the button when you pull up, and it's out there in, 3 minutes anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, you're saving 3 minutes of your life because you're ordering as you drive in.
I don't know. Which they're ordering it on the way over to family night where they're going to be eating anyways, so that was kind of interesting. They must live far enough away. It must be like, maybe it's a 5-hour drive or something. But it can't be because they do it every, I don't know. I'm not even going to get into it.
When you're as tall as Matt and you play as much ball as Matt, you get hungry for some Coney dogs. And those guys are so funny on the commercials. Just makes me so hungry. But Matt and her have a conversation before they meet up as husbands and wives. Matt said, I'm not looking to have kids for 5 to 7 to 8 years from now, which is against what he said, in his interview about having kids. And
Amber responds immediately to that, but I'm going to be 35 by then. Which again, for women, that's a big deal.
Very big deal.
Yeah.
And he said, he said, you can't leave someone if you have kids. You're bonded for life.
Yeah, what do you think? He describes it like it's a prison sentence.
Well,
well, then you're really stuck together. What do you think marriage is about, dude?
What did your vows mean?
Yeah.
My vow will be to treat you like a 3-pointer. I'm going to let it go and hope it goes in. And if it doesn't, I'm going to bust ass for that rebound.
It's I don't understand it. I really don't, because he describes the prospect of having kids as if it's but then I've got to spend way more of my years with who would be my wife or the mother of my kids. I'm what is your plan here? Do you just want kids for yourself, or do you not plan on being married? Amber's red flags and alarms should be screaming.
Well, they were legitimately talking about children's names on the honeymoon.
Yeah.
Like the first couple nights, and all of a sudden he drops us, I'm 8 years away.
Yeah.
And, it just irks me. And then she got, was genuinely hurt by that. So she got on the trampoline with her twin sister. I'm really bummed they didn't use that cool tree.
So they get to her
parents' house.
Childhood home.
Yeah.
And then the twin sister, who we missed out on on a couple of the different episodes when they should have been around. Remember, because you're wait, where'd the twin go?
Yeah,
right. Well, the twin's back.
And she knows Amber more than anyone.
Yeah. So they go, let's go to the trampoline and jump for half an hour, and then we'll go talk.
But
I have a suspicion they went jumping first, but that's just me. I don't know.
Her sister doesn't know anything. She's just as single as Amber
immature,
was.
yeah.
And then they go to this dinner table, and Matt's literally standing there, and he makes
Their conversation is drove me nuts too. I was like, they're not even. Again,
they're terrible. What were they talking about?
Communicators. Well, just the way like she was asking.
What did you learn about? What did you learn about your wife on the honeymoon? Is what they were talking about.
No. I'm not talking about that. Like,
are you talking about her sister?
I'm talking about when they had the one-on-one, the twins.
It's they didn't talk about.
So then
anything.
he was like, "Oh yeah," and then I was like, "Oh okay." And like they weren't talking about anything. And which again, maybe it's like that twin, like they're on the same wavelength. Like I get it, but
she was like, "He doesn't want to share a bathroom with you. That's weird, right? Right?
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Right?" It's like,
no, thank you. Like, because I'm watching these, I'm going, "What am I watching right now?" Like. I don't understand what's going on.
Like in their head, there's like the scrolling script, like in Star Wars, when you're like, but they're reading it, they're like, right. As they're watching the scrolling script because they have that.
Yeah, it was a little bit like, oh man, this isn't an intelligent conversation right now.
Yeah, usually when we were younger, when we watched girls on trampolines on a TV show, it was a whole different concept.
It's a man show.
It's a whole different concept.
Adam Carolla and
Jimmy Kimmel.
So,
but then they go back to the dinner table where they're Amber's dad and I think it's her aunt.
Yes,
we're talking to Matt, and Matt was just kind of sitting there, kind of like BSing around, and all is forgiven. He fits in so well with my family. I don't care that he doesn't want to have kids anytime soon. I don't care. He's great. He fits in. Oh my. Nerves are quelled.
So much of their problems come from a lack of being genuine. Like it's like they put up these facades, and it'll come to bite them.
And she doesn't even she doesn't reprimand him when he's wrong because she's so afraid of losing it.
Well, she's passive aggressive about it.
Yeah,
like that's the way she addressed it. Because she was, I mean. Yes, she was like, everything was like, oh yeah, haha, they're laughing, they're having a good time. But like, she was passive aggressive and like kind of hammering on him in different ways. Which like, again, it's just like that's not the way to do it. And again, goes back to our last podcast. We're talking about like time and place for things.
Yeah,
don't do anything.
And don't have this conversation when you're going to a family dinner.
Yeah, yeah. Just sets the tone.
Yeah, let's for your own sake, probably pass it off. And then yeah. So, then you have Greg and Deanna.
Yep.
Deanna said she's moving past comfortable, which is the music to every husband's ears.
Well, and Greg is like, again, he's already got that honeymoon itch that's been just growing and growing.
He is a dog on a bone.
Not wait.
He's like a dog with a bone. And Deanna kept calling their marriage a situationship.
Situationships. Thank you. I thought I was mishearing that. I wrote that down in my notes. Like situationships. I never. Oh no, not there. She describes her past relationships because.
Oh yeah, that's what it was.
Well, which is cool because this is an opportunity of like where she actually finally opens up to him. She kind of tells him her backstory and why she was single for so long. Which then it all makes sense.
Yeah.
So she describes the situationships basically just like friends with benefits is basically what she was describing to him. And
Greg's like, how come it was easier for them than it is for me?
Which also kind of like dug at my heart too. Cause like here he is struggling. She's putting up so many walls and pushing him away.
Yeah, I was single for 10 years, but I still got it in.
Dude,
He's like, what do
I
gotta do?
And he's just going like, and yet I'm your husband, and I'm struggling to go. He
comes off so damn creepy though, and it's nothing against you, Greg. It's just that you have this little shoulder move that you do when you start feeling it, and then you have one eyebrow that kind of like gets into these moves, like like kind of like The Rock with a seizure. But
the good news out of all this is she is getting more and more into him to the point where like sexual attraction is growing,
and they have sex.
Eventually,
this podcast they have sex.
Yeah.
Because she liked the way that he interacted when he wasn't being creepy with her.
I thought our job was to guide them through this journey.
No, I want to go talk about the important things.
So all right, then fine. Because they have sex on his birthday. No, on his birthday, he gets birthday sex.
But the reason why she does it because he wasn't being creepy towards her. He was being normal towards other people, and she became attracted to that man.
Yep.
And then he got some, and then he went right back into Creepyville. Like, he's not picking up on that.
Yeah, that's a, I actually didn't really pick up on that, but
She
I'll
said
agree
she
with
had
that.
sex with him because he was acting normal with his friends.
Yeah,
And she got to know him better.
well, she probably got to like, not that his creepy side's not masculine, but like him being a man with his man friends is probably like,
Oh.
it is a masculine trait.
Yeah.
And he's normal. Like, he's not sitting in the doorway watching me put my makeup on and commenting on, giving me a light feed on it.
He's not acting weird, and I don't have to entertain him. I don't have to. He acts like a puppy that all he wants is a treat, which is, I could. And then when he didn't act that way, he got it, and then it went right back into shutdown mode.
Yeah.
And she said she was sick, and she didn't like the fact that he was taking care of her when she was sick. I just want to kind of knock out their stuff right now, because there's so many more bigger things going on.
No, for sure.
But and then then Dr. Pepper.
Well, she put the party together for him in the first place. Like, again, like she's also making an effort. Let's not make this sound like Deanna's always just like fighting. I mean, she's got her areas where she is fighting and pushing back, but like she's also making an effort. She threw him a party. She got the guys together, and. Can I just say one thing when all the friends are together, and I had to quote this because it was just too good. One of the friends, who's not one of Greg's friends, asks Greg if he's African. Did you remember that?
No, I didn't catch this. What happened?
He goes, so they're talking, and I think Greg is saying that, like, he is of African descent, but there's one dude, he's also like an African American dude, is like nodding like vehemently and being
vigorously.
Like, and he's like, and he asks him if he's African, and then like everybody kind of turns to him and goes like. And so they're kind of like, why did you like know that, right? It's like, and he goes, oh, because, and he tries to cover up, and he goes, oh, because they're talking about how many kids he wants, because Greg wants lots of kids. So they're like, is that really why? And then there's the one white guy friend who's in the group. It's hilarious. The same guy that like was getting called out for like being so assumptive that he was African.
Yeah.
Turns he goes because Greg goes, what about my buddy here? And he's like this white dude with a beard. He's like a hipster, and the guy goes, South African.
Oh, I do remember that.
I was dying at that part.
That was really funny.
And it was a perfect save because he was getting himself in a little corner there about being like, why did you know that I was African? And he goes, oh, because all the kids you were having, or all the kids you want. I'm like, but because like Greg is like a couple of shades darker than everybody else in that group.
Well, you remember, however, everyone said Greg, once you get to know him, is the funniest guy out there, and it's like I think Deanna seeing that in the interaction with his friends, he's like, okay,
yes,
okay, you're normal, and then
you know what? Maybe him being funny is attracted to her, right? Like, he's funny, he's entertaining.
And he's not being creepy.
Yeah.
And so they did this thing, each couple got assigned an intimacy growing activity.
Yes.
And they played this card game where each suit was...
they're being forced to perform physical intimacy acts, like holding hands or kissing. For
complimenting.
Compliments.
And then however high the card was is how many seconds or times they have to do it. Deanna gave him 10 compliments, and I swear to God, Greg just started to cry. Like, he got 10 compliments from her, and he was just like, this is what I needed. It's like he had this release. And I felt so bad for the guy.
One thing was like, because Deanna's not that type of person.
Yeah.
Where, like, and the things that she said were nice. And, like, I forget, it was the last thing that she said that was like, his heart.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's kind of the thing where it's like he finally got confirmation that like who he was being naturally to her was actually being recognized.
And a lot of the compliments that she gave were things that aren't commonplace. They're things that she's noticed.
Yes.
It's not like, I like your muscles. It's like,
like
I like
your smile.
How kind you are. It's
he's getting confirmation that even though she might not be comfortable with what he's been doing, and the love that he's been throwing and showering on her, is actually being noticed and appreciated. I think that's probably what got to him, which I can understand that.
And he and then it all got stymied when she said she wants sex once a month, and for Greg to go with the flow. And we're back to square one. Here we are.
Exactly. So let's talk about Matt and Amber we kind of just covered. Greg and Deanna. Let's talk about...
we haven't scratched the surface with Matt and Amber.
Well, no. Well, that's coming up.
Why don't we do Keith and Iris next, just because...
Well, we talked about Keith and Iris because of the...
Grandma getting sick.
Grandma. There's not a whole lot that really goes on in them, except for, like, Iris asks Keith if she wants to go to church, and he's like, yep, absolutely, I'm more than happy to. It's like, he's making an effort.
Well, Keith's friends drank the lemonade at the party that they threw. And Iris got mad at Keith, and Keith was like, I don't see it as a big deal. She said the stuff in the refrigerator was ours. I bought specific items for the party. And Keith was like, that's not that big of a deal.
Well, and Keith's argument, which I think is 100% correct as a man, where he goes, all that stuff's replaceable anyway. Like, you spent money on stuff for a party anyways. Like, stuff's gonna go used.
Yeah.
Like, now, maybe if I'm his friends and, you know, maybe she looks uncomfortable, like maybe you might say, you know, have a little bit of self-awareness, but like, is it okay if I grab some? Or if she's visibly upset. But again, I couldn't really tell from the videoing or the shooting whether or not she was like giving them the stink eye as they were doing that. Right?
Yeah.
But I think Keith's reaction was great. And this is the way I think about it too, is it's like, you come over to my house as a guest, mi casa es su casa. Like,
yeah,
this is a place for you to feel welcome. This is a place for you to, like, if you want to, like, yes,
take a dump in my bathroom.
A request is always, yeah. I mean, that's actually a great thing. You're gonna take a dump in my bathroom potentially. Like,
that's fine. Light my candles. Go ahead and eat. Get some extra salsa. Yeah. You know, like if you want a Sprite and I have Coke out, get Sprite from the. It's not like I have a special Sprite.
So I just thought that was a very interesting thing that she really was a stickler about. Was that when I'm like, lemonade's probably like $3.50 or something. About I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's
$2.84 at Walmart.
See, there you go. So, but again, it's like you're gonna get mad at $2.84.
And but she's like, it's the principle. I hate these principled arguments. You know,
well, again, you want to talk about principle? It's lemonade.
Like, it's our stuff, Keith. You're gonna just give our stuff away. They're my friends. They're the closest people to me. If they want something of mine, which is now yours is mine.
They're family to him.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, like.
And I'll go over to their house and grab something out of their fridge, and they won't.
And they don't say shit because it's reciprocal.
Yes.
Like, no, granted.
Everything comes out in the wash.
They come open the garage door and take my car out for a joyride. Yeah, I might have a problem with that. Like, you're gonna have to ask. But like,
oh, can I drive around your car later?
Yeah,
take Pearl out for a swing around joyride.
Now you can't. You're gonna drive her to the lake.
Oh, this Kolsch is picking up. And then so they were given the task for their intimacy lesson was a fishbowl deal where they were asking questions about their sexual intimacy. What's your favorite?
It was Matt and Amber also get the fishbowl as well. And yeah. And with that, it's...
But did you notice how like Matt and Amber's questions were more like personality-based, and then Keith and Iris's were all sexual-based?
That was going to be my point. It was like they both get the fishbowls, but their questions are definitely pointed to where their weaknesses are, where they haven't yet developed. And so with Keith and Iris, it was about sexual intimacy and how comfortable are you, and you know, getting her to kind of come out of her shell that way.
And it was hard to watch them try and talk about, you know, sexual things. What's your favorite position, Keith? Doggy style. Ew, gross. Doggies, ew.
I know.
It's not missionary. It's not basic Caucasian, as Elizabeth described it. Basic Caucasian sex.
Which I also wanted to like bring up on this podcast is like, you know, when Greg finally gets laid, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I was just thought it'd be funny, but like, I wonder if it was basic Caucasian sex.
Well, it's funny too because Greg's like, he's like, we had sex and it was good. It was good. It was good. And then later in the episode, and then later in the episode, he's like, it was great. It was great. It's just like in his mind, it happens so infrequently, it just elevates to the next level. Yeah. But then I did like the conversation that they had at this is Keith and Iris we're talking about here. They actually had a conversation at the restaurant, and Iris says, "My virginity an issue for you?" And Keith was very honest in answering, "Yes, it's starting to become an issue."
Yes. Well, and I think partly of that too was also, if you notice, they went to a nice restaurant.
Yeah.
And I think it's like them trying, like, let's get a little bit more, like, let's have a romantic date. Let's start pushing this thing along a little bit.
Yeah.
And they had that conversation, and I'm glad that like Keith's again that like. If there's one character I like the most in this whole series, it is Keith, because he's who he is. He's not going to be somebody he's not with you.
Correct.
And he's willing to wait for Iris, and he's willing to respect her boundaries and her discomfort with the fact that like she could be losing her virginity to her husband here. Like,
and he's being tender with it, but she's making it a bigger deal. But I have to give her kudos because when he asked her what her self-awareness score was, she said 6.5.
Which shows the most self-aware thing
It's like, so I was like, that's so emotionally mature to understand where you are and where you're being strange.
That was brilliant when I heard her say, I'm like, dude, like she knows herself at least. Like, on her emotional maturity, like in that area. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, that's awesome. Like, but let's talk about what starts happening, right? So we have not talked about
Jamie and Elizabeth.
Well, here, let's leave it off at this. We'll start with how episode 8 ends.
Yes.
Right? So let's start with how episode 8 ends, and we'll get into episode 9.
So
episode 8 ends with Greg and Jamie and Beth have a little bit of a tiff.
Yes.
To begin with, and it gets to the point where, well, she starts asking about like Jamie's family, divorce. It's a sensitive subject. There's some nerves that are still raw there, and instead of actually addressing it, and and I do believe like she was just being curious. I don't feel like she was trying to pick anything.
I want to hear your thoughts because then I can talk to some things too. So let me hear your thoughts. So
yeah.
You thought she was being curious.
I mean, I didn't really see that they were like escalating. I thought they were just having a conversation. She was like, I felt like she was genuinely curious to be like, what happened here? You know, like what's their story with his parents? And it was very sensitive. He gets very defensive. He gets a little bit nasty. Like he snaps at her, and you know he's like a little offended by it, and then he goes on the attack, and then starts going into how
since we're probing right now. I want to ask you difficult questions.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
he was.
So he goes on the attack instead of just like again. Like, I don't.
Did your dad give you interviews?
Yes. So
you don't have a job, so you don't work for your dad.
So he starts attacking her on
her job.
Her job that is with dad at dad's company, and
yep.
And this is also where we find out like she's not actually employed yet. Like. She's not an account executive. She's been lying for the past 4 weeks.
I do this and that, you know, where they need me.
So he starts really just going on the attack, offending her in the process.
Yeah.
And then they're both just raw. And then then it somehow
okay, so let me tell you my perspective of the conversation, because she didn't feel comfortable with the amount of questions that his dad was asking her. And so he started talking about his dad and his stepmom, and asking about their marriage. Then she switched over to her parents. He said, tell me about your parents' divorce. Does your parents' divorce influence your opinion on marriage? Is where she went. And he said to her, I told you on the honeymoon that my parents' divorce is a sensitive area. Mm-hmm. And then she kept pushing. Not that you can't. Again, this is all timing, folks.
Well, and this is also under the not guys, I should say, but this is also under the umbrella of like we're having a naked conversation right now, which is supposed to be safe conversation.
Correct.
And they quickly just throw the whole naked thing out the window and start attacking each other.
Oh, they go straight from naked to raw dog.
Yeah.
And speaking of raw dog, she brings up sex. And she says, you don't like having sex? And he's like, I'm not talking about sex. Granted, he had been saying, I want to probe at you now, and bringing things that he knew were going to piss her off was bad.
Yes, not the right move.
She got defensive again, and then she flipped it over to him, saying that he's not sexually mature, and they have basic Caucasian sex.
But she also talks about it's like all the time. And then we actually find out where I think a lot of this started stemming from, which is the fact that she might have had a UTI and she didn't want to have sex one night. Instead of actually just being honest with your husband, because you guys can be honest with each other. She shut him down, which can feel pretty dejecting.
Yeah, and this is a classic man and female fight, because she's like, we have sex all the time, and he'll be like, it was 5 times. And like, you know, logic brain versus emotional brain, and both people are right, but it's, you know, it really got to look at the circumstances of the conversation. Mm-hmm. You know,
well, and here's the thing, like, ladies that are listening too, if there's no context, you just shut your man down. That hurts, because it makes you feel like I'm not that sexy apparently.
Yeah,
like,
and then it also feels,
does suck,
and it feels that it's conditional and it's weaponized. And I feel like she got into a point, well, I'm not having sex with you anymore, as she said afterwards. So Jamie gets up, packs, and leaves.
Which for the record, we're not saying you don't ever have to not be in the mood, but just communicate that.
Yeah.
Because in this case, and this is a perfect example, because they have a full-blown meltdown, which I believe is really at the core of that interaction. He felt dejected, and so he's going to lash out. But it just comes like, hey, if something's going wrong, you think you got a UTI, like, share that.
Yeah, that would be nice to know.
Share that.
Okay.
And
Instead of me forcing this or trying to like talk you into it, let's go to Walgreens and get some cranberry juice.
And let me take care of you. Yeah, right? Then it becomes like a let me take care of you situation.
Yeah. So he leaves.
Communication is key, is the end of the story.
And he leaves. He just gets up and leaves, and then he tells her in the morning he wants a divorce, which is a word you don't bring up into a marriage.
We don't.
During a marriage.
Well,
unless it's final.
When he comes back, by the way.
Or starting.
To try to mend things, he brings flowers, because that's one of the things that they were talking about while they were walking around the kitchen was, I'd like if you brought me flowers every once in a while. And so he takes note, and again, they had a little bit of tiff that night, so he decides, which again, I think the whole way that next morning started was fantastic. He comes back, he went, thought of her, got her some flowers, great start. And then they open their mouths.
Well, so before that even happened, though, which I thought was very cool, and I didn't realize they did that the specialists or the professionals, or what do they call them? The experts?
Dr. Pepper?
Get video and write-ups every single day about the couples, and she came in an emergency situation, and she scolds both of them.
Dr. Pepper,
you are attacking people. You are attacking each other when you're hurt, and you need to figure that out, and you never say the D word. And Elizabeth, you need to talk about, these UTI that you're having, and that's why you're not. Because he feels this way, you feel this way.
Oh, she grills both of them.
She rips into both of them, which is good. And
she's like, the reason why you guys are at each other's throats right now is because you guys are both doing the wrong things. Like, the exact wrong things.
And so then he brings the flowers, and then Elizabeth claims that he was manhandling her dogs on a walk.
Yeah, which is my favorite quote of the whole episode, by the way, because when they start going into full meltdown mode in their arguments, the dogs are sleeping or snuggling with him.
He's like petting the dogs. The dogs love him.
The dogs love him.
And I noticed that
they're
too.
They're not with her when they're fighting. They're on his lap.
And he's like petting her, and she. I think it demonstrates that she was not done fighting, and that this way of handling the dog, because sometimes you need to move a dog along because a dog will sniff too long or whatever it may be. It
was my favorite part of this episode is just like watching the dogs while they're fighting. Like, the dogs love him. They don't once go over to her.
No, not once. They were just like looking at her like, "Are you leaving?
No,
we're cool. We're cool." When she threatens to leave, and the dogs are just looking at her like, and then
the best part is all of their heads and eyes are tracking her.
All three of them, his included. And I literally was sitting there. I was like, is she gonna take her dogs?
No, because they love him.
That would be my thought as Jamie. Like, all right, you taking your dogs, or this is all on me tonight? Like. And then he's like, you can't. Well, he was kind of but then what Jamie did is he was using what Dr. Pepper said as a weapon. She said, if you leave, we're done. If you leave, we're done. Like, and can't leave in a marriage.
His issue is he's weaponizing that. When it said, it's like,
she weaponized sex and he weaponized that. So then she says, I'm staying, and she slams the door, and you can sleep in the other room, Jamie. And I loved how she came out in the morning. She's like, me staying last night was amazing. Of me. Yeah. I am such the great compromiser.
I'm so amazing.
But then I really like the activity they did where they were blindfolded so they can't see the other person's body language. And I thought they actually
I wanted to bring this up on this episode is because I think part of what got her so riled up was his nonverbal communication. His face looked like he could give two shits about that conversation.
Correct.
And I'm watching him and I'm going, if I was having any conversation with anybody that I cared about and I had an issue with them and they had his expression, I'd be like, stop. You don't give a shit.
And her on the other end, she's so overly animated that he'll see her demeanor change as he's trying to get a thing, and then all of a sudden he'll feel self-conscious, or she also doesn't allow him to finish sentences really, which is another issue. But I thought that was a really cool game, and I think that in my next marriage, I'll try that.
Yeah, it's totally one of those things where it's like it eliminated the whole nonverbal thing, which I think was key.
I thought that was really cool, and they seem to be on a good track.
No, they seem to have worked it out. And you know what? Here's the thing too: was it not necessarily a healthy argument to have? No, but having an unhealthy argument and pushing through it, and her staying. That's the kind of thing I thought was like that's actually. I'd argue they're better off now for going forward than they were before.
Yeah.
Hands down. Yeah. They needed to go through one of these to figure out that they're doing it wrong, so that way they can do it right going forward.
Also, conversely, though, this can't last forever. They have to start making changes to... because it's getting more frequent.
They're still individuals living together. They're not they're not partners yet. They're
Yeah.
still getting there. But all right, so we kind of cruise all the way through episode 9 with them.
Yes.
Let's talk about, again, we're at the end of episode 8.
Yes.
Something happens. We start watching live TV feed or live camera feed of 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Matt and Amber's apartment.
Like grabbing a Gatorade.
Doing a couple dishes, I think. Like he's just kind of moseying around in his white socks with Nike's slippers.
High white socks.
Yeah. And he's kind of just doing whatever. And then he kind of heads out the door, and it's like 2:07 or something like that.
PM
in the afternoon. And then they just show the camera. Amber gets home at 5 or something. 4.
Does lunges around the island. Cooks
Does
dinner.
her in-house workout kind of thing. She's cooking. You see her on the phone texting Matt, and then the night just keeps going on, and she's texting, and Matt's not coming home,
and she starts sobbing, calling her dad.
Calls her dad like 3 o'clock in the morning. Right, it's like early in the morning.
Calls Dr. Pepper.
Yeah,
help.
There's a video of Dr.
Pepper. She goes and sits by the door.
Yeah, she just sits on the couch, like she's like waiting for him to walk in,
which I didn't understand. I know that. I don't understand why she didn't wait in his room. It's not like if he were to walk in, like being on the couch like 20 feet closer to the door would really change anything. But I understand the sentiment of it. It's like I'm
waiting up for you.
Yeah,
it's that. It's more that than it is anything else. If she's
I guess
in bed, she's just asleep. If she's asleep on the bed,
then it's all good.
On the couch. Well, if she's sleeping right. It's like, if she's on the couch, it's like.
But the couch says she wants me to
up for me.
Yeah.
Then
she doesn't go to work the next day because she's too upset that she doesn't think she can perform her job.
And think about it. She was up all night crying and sobbing until 3 o'clock in the morning. She'd be like, she would naturally feel like crap trying. And she's a teacher. Yeah. She got to go teach kids at that. No way. That's. Yeah. So then time goes by. Well, so the morning passes. Then the afternoon passes, and then finally, Matt walks in. And by the way, in this whole context, Matt hasn't texted her back. Hasn't called her back, hasn't given any status update on what the hell he's at, where he's at, what he's doing.
0, and he walks in the door and goes...
Well, while he's out, she gets so insecure, which naturally I feel like anybody would in their right mind.
Yeah.
She starts rummaging through his things to see...
well, key point.
And finds in his empty drawer, because he's got no belongings.
Behind cellophane. But
yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It's probably from his planner. For his car detailing business.
Yeah. She finds his wedding ring in the drawer.
Ooh.
So that's also not very great. I mean, talk about adding to the insecurity. He's been out all night without his ring. Then
he walks in the door around 3:30 in the afternoon, gone for a full 24 hours, and he walks in, he kind of heads...
This is a PSA for all men. If you do this to your woman...
He walks in, he goes right towards the shower, he turns and he goes, sup? Or did he shower first?
No, he walks in, head nods, sup.
And I don't know how she did not rip his head off at that point in time. Men, if you stay out all night and don't talk to your wife,
don't tell your
girlfriend what you're out, what you're doing, give her updates. Don't come home.
Don't come home or you better be dead.
Don't come home
or you better be dead.
And don't come in and say, sup. Oh, man. We should name that this episode. Sup.
So naturally, Amber is not happy about it. However, and this is what grinds Matt's and mine's gears, boy, did she let him off the hook pretty easy.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about what their conversation sounds like.
Who do you want to be?
So, all right. So, first of all, Amber goes, where have you been?
Out.
You didn't text me. His answer is, yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry about that. Why didn't you tell me your plans? Well, I didn't have any plans, so how can I tell you my plans if I didn't have plans?
And she goes, well, what were you doing, right? And so Matt says, well, I was out with the guys, I was hanging out with the boys, we're going bar hopping or whatever, I just crashed over at their place, and, we do this all the time, right? And so she's still not happy, but then she does a good job of, sharing her feelings. She's like, what am I supposed to think? What am I supposed to, can you see somebody who's dealt with abandonment and has abandonment issues?
Yeah. Well, that's what Dr. Pepper said.
That's what Dr. Pepper says. Sorry, yeah, I'm getting ahead of
myself. She was like, well, what about your ring? I was playing ball, and I thought I was coming back.
I was coming back, but we weren't. So
we went out, and we stayed out. I went to the gym with my wedding ring on, and I took my wedding ring off, and then I worked out, then I put it back in. It's in my gym bag.
And that's something actually to keep in mind too. Is like, as married men, yes, we don't want to nick our rings, right?
Yeah, especially if they're metal. And you're pushing up as much weight as Alex and I.
Thousands of pounds.
135 bench press.
But here's the thing: you take your ring off when you're at the gym. You put it in your pocket, or one of those little sleek pockets that you have, and if you got athletic shorts on. And guess what? You put it on your way back out to your car once you're done with your workout. Your ring doesn't ever leave your person. Like that's the one. And I've got a silicone ring, so I can just lift and not even worry about it. But when I had my metal ring, it's not like I lift my metal ring at home when I went to the gym.
No, that's unheard of.
No. So whatever. Anyways, she basically was like, well, like that wasn't cool. Like, this is based on our conversation. She goes like, that basically wasn't cool. And he's like, babe, I'm sorry. I'm still getting used to this like wedding, this marriage thing, or whatever.
He's like, I'm sorry, and she's like, oh my gosh, that's what I need to hear.
And she totally lets him off the hook. She doesn't do shit. She doesn't do shit with him.
And then Dr. Pepper came in and said, no, you can't do this. Never again.
So Dr. Pepper lays into him. And I love his response too afterwards. He's like, man, like, she's treating me like a child because you were acting like a child.
You are a child.
Kidding me? Yeah, like. Anyway, so yeah, it's like.
Well, but then she's like, you Amber, you let him off the hook.
Yep.
And too easily, she's like, well, and then she's like, how could you do this to Matt? How can you do this to someone with abandonment issues? Do you not see how this comes across?
Well, and here's the thing. At first, I was like, wow, Amber's being really cool about this, and then it turned into anger by being like, she's letting him off the hook way too easy. Because here's the thing, and to be fair with Amber, her problem wasn't the fact that he went out with the guys, which some guys, they have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, she was super cool in the sense that she wasn't concerned necessarily so much that he went out with the guys. It's that she just didn't know where he was. He didn't communicate
and he
with
turned
her.
off his phone.
That's where she was upset with him, which she had every right to be.
Yeah.
The problem was he says another sorry, and she's like all good with it. It's like no, that needs to change too.
And that's her problem.
That's her problem.
And I think that was called out. And then
because of her abandonment issues, she's like she wanted to keep it more than like, she was worried that being upset with him might damage it.
Yeah.
When he should be sleeping on the couch for the next 7 days.
He's a terrible person. I mean, he's just so dumb.
But he doesn't know how to operate. He doesn't know how to operate.
He's either a genius or a dumbass. I can't figure it out. But then they play they got to sign the fishbowl game too. And the thing that pissed me off about Matt is like, what's your fantasy? And he's like, that was
the honeymoon pretty much.
Yeah, what happened in Antigua is my fantasy. It's like, that answer alone isn't something you can strive for again in your marriage. And she's like, I want a massage. And the producer's like, we'll get this motherfucker a massage table so we can try and do something for her.
Yep.
But my fantasy already happened in Antigua. I got to take a picture with a camera, and pictures are like memories. And then their fishbowl, his fishbowl answers were nothing burgers. And, they're acting like they're on the up and up, and they are, as he's giving her a massage as the episode ends.
Yes, and I think for me, I like the one thing that I thought was great about the episode. I mean, it was a good episode, but the one thing I liked most about that episode is when Dr. Pepper holds Matt to it, and I think she perfectly describes Matt, and it's not just in the relationship; it's in general. She says, and I quote, I'm going to treat you like a good guy who doesn't know the landscape of having a good relationship and being a good partner. And my opinion is that's him in general in life. Like maybe you're a good person, you just don't know what the hell. Like you don't know you're on planet Earth here. Like nobody taught him how to be a human being.
Like he's getting the benefit of the doubt for being a big dumb oaf.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Because I'm also in your boat too. I'm like he's just a terrible person. He knows. He should not be cheating on somebody, or shouldn't be out not communicating with your wife when you're out. Like, you know that, dude. You know that.
You can't be that dumb.
No. And that's where it's like...
Or that short-sighted.
Yeah. So I think Dr. Pepper, without calling him an absolute idiot jerk, gives him that, and that's like the politically correct, not politically correct, but just a very kind way of saying, like, I'm going to assume that you're a good guy, and that you just don't understand the landscape of what a relationship is, because you haven't done this really before.
Dr. Pepper was pissed.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
With two couples.
Yeah.
Which leads us to our Stones rating. But before we do, we want to give another shout out and thank you to our sponsors at Wash Park Lending, Justin at Wash Park Lending. If you're in the market to buy, refinance a home, give him a call, and that's at www.washparklending.com. Company NMLS is number 1952608. So give Justin a call. And let's get in the Stones rating. So after every episode, we give a Stones rating. We each have 2 stones to give.
Naturally.
And no stones means that an act of castration is preferable to watching this episode. 2 stones means you enjoyed it. We combine our scores to get a score out of 4. And there's also the highly anticipated, highly vaulted media scale that Alex is going to rate this episode. So since you gave last episode, I'm going to give this episode 2 stones. A lot happened. A lot of people were reprimanded for their behavior, and I loved watching that. People being told they're wrong in a relationship, love that. There was a lot of outside of in the confines of a normal marriage, a lot of common issues in a marriage were brought up in this episode between all 4 couples, with the exception of Matt staying out all night, which is not
should not be normal.
But it gave people a roadmap to navigate that and communicate. So I like that. So I'll give it 2 stones. What about you?
2 stones, hands down. I mean, just the Matt thing alone made it, a really intriguing concept, and seeing how people can react to it on both sides, whether it's right or wrong, and the meltdown, 3 rounds of fights that Jamie and Beth had was a good look into, like, this is how people
degenerate.
This is how, when you have an approach of getting defensive and lashing out, it doesn't help the relationship. The only thing they're really lashing out is the relationship in and of itself, it's deteriorating it. So I thought it was 2 stones, hands down. Lots of good stuff. It is like I said, it's a 2-pound, 14, maybe not 2-pound, 14-ounce tomahawk steak of a media episode.
Whoa,
it was great.
It's a tomahawk steak?
It's a tomahawk steak.
That's $85 at a steakhouse.
Yep. It's meaty.
Wow.
Meaty.
It's a super meaty.
Maybe even a Florentine steak. Yeah.
Whoa. I
Florentine
can't believe
steak.
you went there.
It's like that thick. Yeah. It was a great 2 episodes.
It's a great pod. He just held up about 3 inches in his hand.
Yes.
So, wow, it's a tomahawk or a steak Florentine on the meaty scale.
Yeah.
And it went from pork chop to tomahawk. So,
which pork chop's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah, well,
it's still meaty. It's delicious.
4 stones from us. Tune in for the next episode where we go through episodes 10 and 11. Can't wait to figure out what the hell Matt does next. And we'll talk to you soon.
We'll be in touch. Yeah.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube at ROS Stones, guys. Reach out to us, follow us.
We need suggestions. What are we going to watch next?
Yeah, until The Bachelor comes back, which is kind of our bread and butter, we are going to finish up MAFS, and we want to figure out what you guys want to see next. So let us know and drop us a line. Stay easy.
Heard it here first.
Heard it here first.